Good evening, Monadnock region, and welcome to Go Mo Tonight, the Monadnock region's only weekly local interest comedy podcast. I'm here in the Space Lounge as your host, Christopher DiLoretto, and I'm here with my lovely co-hosts.
Zoe Roten-Heinzman.
And Sam Abbott.
We're extra excited this week because our little segment that we typically do as the entire show is going to be a little bit shorter than usual because we're going to have some guests on. We are very, very pleased later on in the show to be joined by Bill Kennedy, Bob Haring-Smith, and Dori Drachman of the Peterborough Renewable Energy Planning Team. They are the task force that is dedicated to implementing over the next several years the actual tangible measures to accomplish I believe it's a carbon neutral goal for Peterborough of 2030 that the voters actually voted for in one of our recent elections. It was a ballot question. So Peterborough as a town has committed to going fully renewable. Or I'm not sure if it's fully. I think it's actually it goes beyond carbon neutral. We'll ask them.
It's fully renewable by 2030.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not even just carbon neutral. It's we're doing all renewables by 2030. So they're going to come on and tell us a little bit about how they intend to do that. It's interesting, actually. Dori, I don't think I've talked to Dori since then. But when Zoe and I were running for office last spring, on election day, we sat with Dori basically the entire day because I say recent election. It was last year's election. They were campaigning for people to vote in a positive direction on this question. I very much enjoyed my time sitting with Dori. I always, as loyal listeners might expect, I always sort of fear that the person who's stuck listening to me talk all day long might not have a positive feeling about me, but Dori, I think, enjoyed our company as well. I think it went both ways. So
Yeah,
I'm looking forward
it was
to
a fun day.
I'm looking forward to that conversation, which we will have tomorrow. It is, by the way, Thursday, February. Just trying to think what month is the second month. February 3rd, 2022. So we are, of course, recording this on time. This episode will be out about a week from now. We are at this moment raining outside. Schools have been canceled in ConVal, and it's supposed to turn to ice. It's going to be a bad scene. Another wintry disappointment.
Yeah.
And it's fitting because no, go ahead.
Ice forecasts have been decreasing, which is a good thing. I mean, I was a little bummed. I wasn't. I don't love the snow as much as some people do. I don't hate it as much as some people do. But I was kind of looking forward to that big storm that was forecast for last week. I was really wanting that like 3 foot, snowfall. But the ice total going down, that's a good thing. No ice.
Ice sucks.
Ice sucks. It's not the same thing. Yeah.
Yep. Ice objectively sucks. I think even the winter lovers agree that the ice storm kind of blows.
I don't know. I'm gonna ask them. I'm gonna keep poking that. Find out. Do the winter lovers love ice?
Yeah,
see if I can
true.
get them
yeah,
riled
right.
up.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, so we did do a little pot stirring this week. Our voices columns were heavily themed around winter. I mean, Dan's monthly column came in, and it was definitely winter related. We talked about the season that we're in and how different. It's funny because Dan, and I hope you listen to this, Dan, because I didn't think about this before. Otherwise, I would have said it on Facebook. But like, so Dan Sesney had his Transcendental Dad piece. That's a monthly column that I need to send him money for. Actually, we pay him for that. Good reminder. I'll remember it. Dan, the money's on the way. PayPal, it's coming. Hopefully it gets there by next week when you can hear this. But so Dan's piece was Monday, and it was kind of a somber, wintry piece talking about Thich Nhat Hanh dying, and kind of having difficulty. Like his piece is usually about being in the moment, and this was about having a lot of difficulty being in the moment. and part of that being seasonal and et cetera. And then I posted something that was, Zoe actually described it as a little bit adorable and charming and sweet, which is not my usual tone on this podcast, anyways. But it is sometimes I think those adorable, sweet thoughts, and I put them down. And it was just about winter, but it was a very sort of like open and vulnerable, like, yes, I yell and scream and make jokes about hating it, and I do, and that's not fake, but it isn't absolute, and I can appreciate good parts about it, but it's just really difficult for me, and there's a lot of factors working against me while I do it, but I'm trying, and I it's just like a real struggle for me. And then the day after that, which is today, we published a piece from Kayla Law, um, that was just the opposite of that, which was basically like, man, if you have time with the winter, if you have a hard time with the winter, there's something wrong with you. You haven't figured out the secret yet. You need to push on through. Like you are just missing the whole thing if you don't. And you have to get outside and spend a lot of time outside and like suffer for it, whatever. But my point in saying this though is that when I shared her piece, intentionally with some smart ass remarks to generate some argument, right? Dan was taking her side on the Facebook wall and was just like, yeah, Kayla, he doesn't understand. But if you go back and read these three pieces, Dan's piece is a lot more like mine than it is like hers. Like Dan is like, he's espousing one thing, but he's living another. It's like that wonderful, wonderful moment in Oliver Stone's Nixon, right? When Nixon is like facing his downfall and like everything's like crumbling all around him, and he just walks up to the picture of John F. Kennedy and he says, who's obviously dead, and he says, they look at you and they see what they want to be. They look at me and they see what they are. And that's the difference here. Is that
so what, like you're Nixon and he's JFK?
Yeah, I'm Nixon and Kayla's JFK.
Oh, okay. And Dan is not in this analogy?
No, Dan wants
Dan's
to
the
be
people.
Dan's
the people.
The audience.
Got it.
Dan wants to be. Wants to espouse this joy like Kayla does, but he doesn't. He doesn't feel that way, and most people don't. I'm not going to go any further than that. But yeah, it was really interesting. So it was fun little wintry skirmishes that we're having over here to pass the time as we get through. The Olympics have begun. Opening ceremonies are technically tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m. because, China now rules the world instead of the Eastern time zone of the United States. Fuck that. Sorry, but I am selfish, and I liked it when we got all 100% of the time zones. It's a bummer to lose that. No wonder people try to fight to keep privilege. It's great. But the Chinese have won, and they will do it in prime time in their own country. Imagine that. And which is the morning for us at 6:30. So we'll watch that. But events have already started. I've been watching a bunch of curling. The USA team so far is not doing really good. But the Italian mixed doubles team, man, they've got this incredibly. I don't want to get myself in trouble here. She's an incredibly skilled curling hottie named Stefania Constantini, who I am now a big fan of, and I just watched them kick this because they beat the Americans yesterday. And I was watching the replay of them beating the Swiss, because fuck the Swiss, man. And so it was great. They beat them in. They had to go into an extra end because it was tied, but they got him in the end. I love this shit. I love the Olympics. Put on the Olympics. If you're listening to this a week from now, there's still at least a week and a half to go. It will make the winter better. Going outside won't help, but watching the Olympics might help. So, like I said, though, we have to kind of move along because we've got a number of topics to cover and we don't want to go our full length. I do want to give a small update from our top story last week, which is to say, I remember mentioning towards the end of our very lengthy discussion on the ninth grade gangs of ConVal. That my suspicion is probably that the school it really probably is doing what they can and the right things, and is not letting kids get away with guns in schools and violence and things like that. And that, as all appearances indicate at this point, that is true. Superintendent Saunders issued a lengthy statement that went out to middle and high school parents this week. Not going to read that statement, but I have read it, and and I've been actually very critical of Superintendent Saunders on other issues. So I don't want anybody to think I'm some kind of fluffer here or anything like that. I thought the statement was just fine, though. I wouldn't ask for anything else in it. It was 100% satisfactory. Everything that I would want out of a school administrator. I mean, I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that it's all true, but I have no reason to suspect that it's not. So hopefully this is the last we hear about the deep ConVal violence. We probably didn't just solve violence in this short period of time. Probably not. But let's just hope they keep them separated, and we'll go from there. All right. But thank you, Superintendent Saunders, for your leadership on this issue. I know that I, for one, am sleeping better at night, although it's probably because of the new mattress that I just got. What else is going on in the region?
Well, there was apparently a wild select board meeting where some stuff went down.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I have like the whole inside scoop, except to say that there's more about these reassessments that we talked about in one of our early episodes. The people are still not happy. They're not accepting their new property values. And so they stormed the select board meeting with like bayonets or something? Is that?
Yes. Yes, they were makeshift bayonets, I believe. They were whittled sticks from the shed.
You can do a lot of damage with a whittled stick, though.
You absolutely can, and I think they had tiki torches too. They always do these.
Tiki torches.
Was there fire? Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I think there were tiki torches. Absolutely. But yeah. So a couple of concerned citizens believes that the assessment was biased. I believe it was not reported in the Ledger article, but I've been told that there were talks among this group again of suggesting that the assessments were part of a scheme for the town to raise more revenue, to make up for all that money, the millions of dollars that Karen Hatcher stole. That still, the last time we talked about that, we mentioned that that's not possible. That's still true. It's still not possible for the town to do that. If it were possible for the town to do that, the town, I mean, God, they could have a select board meeting and they could vote to raise any sum of money for any purpose and come and collect it from you. Like, this is like, I don't know, like Judea in the New Testament times when everyone hated the tax collectors because they were coming to your door to like take your money and like take a cut for themselves. Like, that's literally what would be possible if what you think is true were real. It's not.
I think about like Robin Hood and that like poor little bunny family, you know?
Yes. Yeah, God, guys, things are deteriorating. They are deteriorating, but they're not going back that far that fast. You know, maybe in a few years the town will have the power to just assess and take revenues, but not today. Not as long as the state of New Hampshire still kind of runs the show in the live free or die state, in a centralized manner. The town can't do that. And the town has no ability to use assessment as a weapon or a tool. It just doesn't work.
And if you don't believe Chris, there is going to be a public meeting where there's going to be some like experts to explain it to anyone who's still confused. So I think that's like the best thing to do.
The best thing to do is to like take good advice and just listen to us here on this program. That's the best thing to
Sure.
do. Look, we're 15 minutes into this episode. You spent 15 minutes learning a crucial truth that will stay with you for the rest of your goddamn life, right? Or you could have to go out on a cold, wintry night in a few weeks and spend God knows how many hours with a bunch of unwashed, probably like half unmasked, just foaming at the mouth people, and suffer through all that for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, watching like the select board like melt into their chairs, as they watch the scene unfold,
To clarify, I mean, it was probably the best thing for the town to do was to like hold an educational session, not for our listeners to attend.
Just listen to this. Listen to us on this program. We're not going to steer you wrong. I swear to God. We haven't yet. Jeez. All right. Good. Well, yeah. So unfortunate that is part of the fray again. I mean, I thought we had moved on.
I really did too.
We are homeowners, for the record, people. So we are part of the fray and part of the mix here of the assessment and everything else. I mean, renters obviously are too, but that's a common assumption levied. Well, they would feel differently if they owned a home, But it's not true for anybody. But it's definitely not true for us because we do own homes, and the values went up. The values went up. It's market forces, capitalism. I don't know. I used to spend a lot of time. Never mind. Accept the markets, guys. Accept the markets. They're not going anywhere. The working class isn't going to have a revolution and take charge and make all the assessments fair. Like, it's off the table. You got to take your lumps. Like, eat it, guys. Eat it. Oh my God. The whining.
But I think one thing we can say though is that those the riffraff that will be there as I'm as I'm assuming.
Did I use that phrase? I don't.
You didn't use. Well, I mean,
I called them unwashed.
Use that phrase. Unwashed. You did say
unwashed, filming, and like improperly wearing masks. But I didn't say riffraff. But fair enough.
But I was going to correct your image of these kind townsfolk, though, because I don't think that they will be half unmasked because they're not allowed to be.
Because in other town business, we have now that like the prison state of Australia has given up on trying to really bother with anti-COVID measures because there's no point anymore. The town of Peterborough has decided to extend our government building mask mandate by another month. We're going to save all those people this way.
It's, when you walk into a Peterborough government building, that's when the virus really jumps out at you.
It has a special affinity for like old brick buildings and just government offices in general. The government carpet. Like it's a COVID just seeps out of that.
It doesn't really explain why the brand new library is also affected, but
I think that's just one of those like, wow, if we made an exception for the library, we'd have to make an exception for everybody. We can't do that. But look, I'll just say though, guys, it's over though. Like it's over. It's the measures are over. Like the countries of the world are all giving up all at once. Peterborough can do it too. We can all relax. Like we're not saving anybody else. Whoever's been saved has been saved. God bless. As Australia, the prison state has said we got to live with it. We just got to live with it. We got to deal with it. Again, just like with the property tax assessments, like we gotta eat it. We just gotta eat it. That's just the way it is.
This is a case where giving up is not a failure. It's like it's the thing
It's
to
a
do
victory.
now.
It's a victory. It's
Yes.
a victory. Like guys, it's okay. It's really like everybody who did the best that they could do. Give yourself a pat on the back. Just go ahead right now. Let's all do it together. Give yourself a good old pat on the back from me, from yourself, from the community. Okay? It's all good. All right. But nobody's helping anymore. The helpers are gone. Okay? Like Fred Rogers and everything. Like, don't look for them anymore because you won't find them. We're not really all in this together. It's what it is. Like, it's just we gotta live with it. We gotta move on. Life goes on. I mean, I don't know. I'll wear the mask. I'm not. Yes, exactly.
To quote a teen poet laureate.
Like I will comply. Like I'm gonna have a zoning board meeting on Monday, and I'm gonna have one of my awesome N95s strapped around the back and like clipped down on my nose. It's gonna be so great. But it's not gonna be great. I'm gonna be pissed the whole time, and it's not necessary because it's over. Massachusetts is saying it's over. Like I mean, come on. Like it's done. It's all there is to be said about the continued mask mandate.
Pretty much. Hopefully March 2022, the 2-year anniversary. when we do our show, we can do it maskless.
We'll do it maskless from the stage at the townhouse.
that actually, if we were really going to do one, I would enjoy doing that.
What do you mean if? Don't disappoint our viewers like that. They've all been sitting here. You don't have any idea how much fan mail we get from people being like, oh my God, I can't wait for the COVID 2-year anniversary clip show special. I hope to be able to contribute some of my own COVID footage to the inevitable montage that you do. I want to, I mean, it goes on. So let's not.
And if they miss our deadline, the Ledger will probably have a special insert in like September.
They'll mark the 2-year anniversary then. Yes. And with the headline, it's finally here.
Oh.
Speaking of the Ledger, they snubbed us in favor of Monadnock Writers Group. Typical.
They did. You want me to show
that paper on the screen
this
here.
Paper. So we've got 3-minute fiction slam, front page of the arts section, and then our like amazing series of writing workshops is just crammed right here into this corner.
We have a professional writing instructor, like a multi-decade professional writer coming to run these in-depth workshops. It's a 3-genre series, and no offense to the 3-minute fiction slam, but
it's 3 minutes long. We have 3-hour-long workshops.
For those of you who don't know, like the media biz, like part of editorial is like placement of things and like where, like I was watching, for example, the relatively recent American Experience PBS documentary on William Randolph Hearst, and he was kind of the first like sensational media guy, and like he obviously wasn't even the editor, he was the publisher, and he would walk through the newsroom itself, like before printing, and look at the final layouts and be like, no, like move that there, bigger headline, bigger text there, bigger, like, and like he would actually like make those comments about like how things go and all that stuff. It's never an accident where things show up. And again, no offense intended to the 3-minute fiction slam. I hope that any of you listening to this who like that sort of thing attend, but let's get out the scales here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But all that being said, this is a wonderful opportunity to plug these workshops. We begin with our first date, which is, I believe, February 23rd. Is that correct?
I don't know if you should trust me.
Oh, yeah. Zoe's been playing the bass drum a lot. But yes, that's a Wednesday. Let's check the ledger transcript for our workshops.
February 23rd.
February 23rd. This is
Useful.
a 3-hour afternoon workshop from what is it, like 1 to 4?
1 to 4, yeah.
And this is a session on the art of memoir writing, which I think that many people in this region have a lot of stories to tell. Many people in this region have a lot of years in which to have gathered stories. And this is a great opportunity for people with a large quantity of either of those things, or both, to really kind of learn how to get that down on paper. And I'm making ages jokes again, I know, but for real, I mean, I wrote a spiritual memoir myself a year or so ago. It really doesn't have to be an age thing, and I encourage anybody, regardless of the quality of your stories, to write about your own life. It's kind of important. I think it's healthy for you and good for you, your own sense of story. I think it's a very valuable thing for any relatives or descendants that you may have who may learn something about you either now or after you're gone. And this will sound like a joke that it's good for history, because you might think like, oh, I'm an ordinary person and all that stuff, but like that's not necessarily true, because when historians 100 years from now or so, like look back on this era, like yes, you could argue that like, oh my God, everything is documented and all this stuff. Like you can just look at people's social media or like look at the surveillance cameras that are everywhere to like get a picture of ordinary life. But I don't know that either social media or without looking at like hundreds of hours of footage, surveillance photos, surveillance video, is really can convey what it's like inside your head in like a day-to-day experience in the early 21st century.
Right.
So legitimately, I think the more people, and we find this right with past eras and past history where there's a lot of documented stuff and there's news reports and there's professional histories and all this stuff, but there's that rare random like diarist that kept a personal log. They were a nobody. They were just a regular ordinary person, and historians have found that years later, and it's actually kind of a treasure because it's so different and so much more rich with detail about the way that people have experienced things, than your typical like official sources or easy things to research.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah.
So,
and Brian Evans Jones, our instructor for these courses, I mean, his plan is to like, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I sit down to try to think of something from my past to write about, I'm like, oh my God, I don't remember anything. Like what's wrong, what's wrong with me? I have no memory. He's going to focus on that. This is about how to like mine your memory and kind of activate some of that stuff. And he's also gonna teach you how to like structure a memoir in new ways. So it's not just, doesn't have to just be like a diary or like I'm just gonna flap this story down on paper. So I think it's gonna, I think some really interesting stuff is gonna come out of this, and I'm excited to read. I hope we get to read some of the stuff.
I think it's going to be super cool, and we follow that up with two-part sessions on Tuesday nights, for the whole. Really, it's all the Tuesdays in March, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
The 1st and the 8th are fiction, and so again, very similar deal. Brian's going to kind of take things through and help you kind of understand how to put together your fiction ideas and turn them into reality.
And the focus for the fiction is about characters.
Mm-hmm.
We might, this goes well, we'll keep working with Brian. He's got other, he can focus on plot or whatever, but we're focusing on character for this workshop. So that is going to be really cool.
Yeah,
those are
really
6:30 to 8 p.m. on those first 2 Tuesdays, and then after that, on the third and fourth Tuesday of March, the actual dates of which are the 15th, 16th,
yes, 15th,
and the what's the next
23rd,
one?
22nd, 22nd.
Yeah.
15th
Okay.
and 22nd.
15th and 22nd. That's poetry.
Yep.
And also from 6:30 to 8. And what's the poetry focus? Oh, this one sounds so cool. This one's imagined places. So he talks about, like could be travel places, could be made up places, I guess, but just in the COVID era, kind of like where we were all trapped, what can come out of that. So maybe not like explicitly COVID poetry, but I think it like speaks to our time when so many of us have been constrained in terms of place. So again, I can't wait to see what writing comes out of all these. And I hope we get to read it again.
we've got signups coming in, and actually that's kind of an important fact because it'll be a week from now by the time people listen to this. If you're listening to this and these sound cool to you, there is registration. They do have a cost. They are the first one, because it's only one session, is $60. We got to pay for the room, so we're just trying to recoup those expenses. So $60 for that first one, and then the other two are $65 a piece. And that's $65 for the 2 sessions, not $65 for each night that you go. Right. So it's a steal to work with a professional writer and get this kind of instruction and really enable you to gain something for your craft that you can take with you. For, whether you consider it a craft or a hobby or an outlet or whatever, this is going to, like, getting better at it is going to bring you more happiness from it. And it's gonna, don't miss this. But if you're listening to this and you want to do it, jump on it. Click the links in the show notes, because I think we're capped at around 10 people for these, and we've had signups already, so that's a relatively small number. So get in while the getting's good, as the humble Yankees might say. I don't really know where that expression comes from, but so do that. And last thing, while we're promoting ourselves and our in-person things, this episode is likely to come out on Thursday morning, which is the 10th of February, which is the second Thursday of the month, which means Monadnock Underground open mic night over at, again, the Peterborough Town Library. So that is a little bit on the earlier side. That runs from 5:30 to 7. And we do have coffee. We'll have some coffee there.
May I just insert here for contractual reasons that the open mic is a library sponsored event. The writing workshops are not.
Yes, that's library. We're going. I bet you. I hope we get an award at the end of the year for being like the only group that actually like read the terms and conditions and was like, yes, we need to state that this is not a library official event and we are adhering to it. Yes. So.
Well, I love the library. I want to follow their terms.
I want to follow their terms. Yes, their terms are very reasonable. Their people are good. In fact, I like that little phrase that I just said. I'm gonna use that for other people as well. Their terms are very reasonable. Their people are good. It's a good way to describe a group, Like that's how I would. If I say that about you or your organization, I'm speaking very highly of you from my heart. So come to the library. They have been a wonderful partner to us from day one, and the open mics are always a blast. We fill, regardless of how many people come, we fill the time. And we have just heard all kinds of different writing. There's no, like, you come to this thing and you truly just don't know what you're going to hear. And that is kind of the thrill of an open mic. Like, it's not, you might have this image of in your head of like kind of everyone coming and reading the same types of things, but it has worked out so nicely each time so far that the divergence between every single writer who's doing a reading is phenomenal. The variety is fantastic. And if you are a writer again and you've never read anything in public, talk about something that will, give you a little bit of a boost in terms of just confidence, and it gives you a whole different perspective on your own writing when you hear it read by yourself in front of other people live. Like, you see things that you might not see in your own self-editing process. It happens to me all the time.
Even if your self-editing process includes reading aloud, which it should, that's a really useful thing. I've heard feedback from other writers at this open mic that reading it in front of an audience is like an even more valuable or different. Maybe we don't have to quantify it, but like a different level of experience and usefulness. So
absolutely.
Very friendly listeners, most of whom are also writers. It's a good vibe.
Yeah, you get to have my best attempts at being like an MC, it's my Academy Awards host impression. It's a great time. It's a great time.
And we keep promising coffee and tea, I realize. So I'll make sure there's tea as well.
We did have tea once.
Yeah.
So far nobody's called us on the lie the last few months. So I think we're in the clear, but it would be wonderful if you did. I think that would be much appreciated.
I'm going to make that promise right here on the air. So come just to see if I lied.
Yeah, and the other funny thing too is that, like, no matter how many people show up, the coffee, like, I bring one of those giant like carafe things that you with a spigot and stuff. It gets drunk, like, no matter how many people show up, that thing's empty when I leave. So come get caffeinated, and we'll read some writing. It'll be awesome. Cool. Well, we've got a couple more just little tidbits to before we close out and go over to our guests at prep, I believe. A couple maybe heartwarming tales.
Oh yeah, Sam brought us, and you've got a tale for us today. Story of the week, I'm going to call it. For me, it's the story of the week.
Well, statewide news coverage.
Actually, yeah, WMUR 9 today at 4:56 p.m. This was updated. Over 50 snowmen built for assisted living residents. And I'll have you know, insider tip, it's actually 51. 51 snowmen. Now, looking at the snowmen here in WMUR 9, we've decided that they don't have quite the integrity that you would expect from a traditional snowman in terms of 3 round balls, in a descending size. These are more, as Chris put it, a snowbank that my kids kind of shoveled out the space in between each one, so they were all connected from the shoulders down. But there's also
lumps,
little
I believe,
infantile lumps. Yeah, lumps. That's right. Yeah. So we have little baby lump size ones. There's one that appears to just be a head, really. But it's all here. It's here for everybody to see. And interestingly, I brought this to Chris's attention, and he happens to own the house right next door to Summerhill, and he hadn't noticed it yet. So,
no, I never saw this. I was home pretty much all day today, and I never saw a WMUR truck. I have not noticed these snowmen that I could apparently like throw a rock and hit. I've been out of the loop, and I apologize to all of the elderly that live near me for not being a good enough neighbor.
I don't think they built them.
Chris does, though. He keeps saying that.
So who did this then?
Was somebody? Probably, yeah. The neighborhood kids. Okay,
but like, all right. I hope it was kids. I hope it was kids. I have most of the neighboring kids to this nursing home, and they weren't there. And the other kids were in school today, so I don't know who did this. It's a little weird if these were made by a non-senior adults, and they're just lumps. I don't mean
the way that I read this,
if they were like dementia patients, I would give them a pass. But
the way that I read the article, though, is that they were built to entertain the elderly residents.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Snowman doing it.
Yeah. They look out the window and say, "There they are."
Hey,
You know?
look at that.
Maybe it was a non-senior adult, and he just kind of cranked it out and got it done. You know. They're like, "Hey,
But
could
so
you
then
build?
in
Could
that
you build 50 plus snowmen?" He's like, "Yeah, fuck, I'll build 51 for you." You know, he gets it done in an hour, puts a bunch of shit on their faces, and says, "There you go." You know?
But like, why 50? Why not like one magnificent, 50-foot snowman? Like what?
Yeah.
What
Some
if?
people are quantity
Hear
over
me out.
quality. I mean, I'm with you. I think one magnificent one would have been a hell of a lot better, but got volume
Listen,
people out there.
I'm totally speculating here, but like, what if the whole thing was commissioned by
That might have
a
been.
group of residents, the Summerhill Psychedelic Society, and what they want to do is like take some mushrooms and like look out the window at the snowmen, which they're probably doing right now as we record this episode. That would explain a lot. I mean, that all the pieces fit in with this explanation. I know
Yeah.
there's probably no psychedelic society over there, but it would certainly explain what's going on better than WMUR did.
Yeah, no, it's true. They appear to be melting, which kind of goes in with your, psilocybin theme.
Yeah,
but
right,
okay.
exactly. Like, man, these guys, they would be, because, yeah, seriously,
This is
they
it.
would be getting a whole lesson on the ephemeral character of life and what it means to be towards the end and all this stuff.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, apparently, to make some really strange connections back to a couple of very different past episodes on this program, there was a link to a podcast that was shared by Kay Kinderman this week. Now, Kay is someone who has written for Monadnock Underground and is the founder of the Peterborough Death Cafes. And the podcast was Amanda Knox's podcast with her husband, where they just did an entire series on psychedelic mushrooms, and some of which really focus on the death doula psychedelic mushroom component. So using it as a medicinal preparation for death. In both the elderly and terminal patients and things like that. So it's
So it
it's
all
all
adds
very.
up.
Is Amanda
totally
Knox the one from your childhood, Chris, that you really were into?
Hell yeah!
Got kidnapped or something, whatever, and held in
my young adulthood. Yes, I was grown.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Yes,
I was saying your childhood crush. That might not be an apt way to describe her.
Yeah, that's a little. Yeah, not quite.
That's how it registered for me, but
she's like my age, and she was an adult when this happened.
That was all connected then. Even that with the Death Cafes, both those were separate, but now they're one.
Correct.
Because of the snowmen.
Because of the snowmen.
Yeah.
Because of the snowmen on the hill.
Undeniable. It's a perfect fit.
Undeniable truths.
Could have just been a lazy teenager that they, paid him for an hour and he just got out
when
there.
When I was a lazy teenager, people were always like, "Hey, dude, come make my snowman."
Yeah.
For me.
Be like, "Yeah, I'll fucking make your snowman. $20. Done.
I got nothing to do, man. Yeah.
And you know what? To take it a step further, and this is risky, but I'm going to go for it. Maybe it was one of our ConVal gangsters and he's out on suspension. So he had the day to fucking do it anyway.
And he's reformed.
This is his community service.
It could have been community service.
But I like to think it wasn't like mandated community service. It was, he really had a wake up call and was like, "Man, I'm living my life the wrong way. I'm gonna go to Summerhill and build some snowmen for those old folks. That is how I want to live my life from here on out." I hope that is true. I hope that's really what happened.
Yes.
Any of these things would have been better than what WMUR did. But
that's right. What is going on there? Yeah.
At least they brought it to our attention.
Yeah, so we could figure these stories out for ourselves.
Exactly. on that heartwarming note, the best in all of us is possible, right? We're going to draw this segment of the program to a close. We've exceeded our time by a little bit, not really that much. This will still be about an hour-long episode, pretty standard. We're going to do about 20 minutes with the prep team tomorrow. We're going to give them some questions, let them kind of explain what their approach is and their origins and all that, and then kind of talk about different approaches to this problem and whether it's 2022 already. That's 8 years. I think we all have questions about whether that's a truly realistic prospect. We're going to find that out tomorrow. So I hope you stick around, listen to this interview, enjoy it. I'm really excited to have more guests on, and I really appreciate the good folks at Prep. Bill Kennedy in particular reached out to us to set this up. So thank you, Bill, and thank you to the Prep team, because I'm really grateful to have you on. I think that's very exciting, and we want to do more stuff just like that. But at the end of that segment, the show is going to wrap from there, so we will say our goodbyes here. That's it for us in the Space Lounge this week. We hope that you will join us next week. We hope we will have even more heartwarming tales to share. We hope that we have all survived the ice storm that is to come in the next couple of days. So please, hunker down, stay safe, have a good time, make some snowmen for old folks. If you're feeling a little itchy, a little violent, do that instead. More than anything else, be sure and take good advice. See you next time.